Paul Bass.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. This evening I rise to read into the record a heartfelt response to the shock that was sent through the West Coast community last week when the Threatened Species Scientific Committee launched a report in regards to the Maugean skate. And I'd just like to read a letter I received from Linton into the Hansard. Hi, thank you for taking the time to read this. I'd like to keep it short, but I'm not going to, as this matter will affect the lives of so many in my community. The above photo is the view from my office. It's a nice day today, no wind or rain, so I can see all the way down the harbour with a nice old sailing boat on its way back to Strawn. I feel that I live and work in the most beautiful place on earth. Yes, I am the manager for Huon's Western region, but I'm also part of the Strawn community for the last 4 years. I came from a town in southern Tasmania. My parents died when I was really young, so I got handed around from family member to family member, and then on to friends. All outlooks for me and my brother was that we would be no-hopers and never get anywhere in life. This was up till the point that I was lucky enough to start work at Fish Farm, where the workers treated me like family and helped me sort out my stuff. Then I switched over to another company. This was where things really started to happen. I'm not sure what they saw in me, but they invested in me so much effort and time to train and upskill me to become a better leader. And now, under the control of JBS, they're investing even more in me. Not only in me, but my whole team of 31 people. The town of Strawn relies heavily on the local fish farmers through the winter months, as very few tourists visit the area and most workplaces need to shut down as it's just not viable to stay open without the support of our local workers spending money in the area. For instance, of my 31 workers, I can find at least 20 of them at Molly's, our local takeaway store, each morning buying a coffee and lunch. The fish farms were also heavily involved with local sporting groups such as football clubs and golf clubs. The town needs such activities as there's not much else to do during winter and it keeps everyone sane and able to socialise. Strawn used to have a cricket side, but when all the lockdowns came from COVID, that closed down and they haven't been able to get it up and running again. As for the skate, I'm a little hesitant on the science. We see many people still catching them down at the local wharf, so I'd wonder if some more effort needs to be put into looking in other spots within the harbour. We will always need control sites, but as most people in the world are aware, fish swim, and it could be migrating into a different area of the harbour. I have no doubt in my mind that fin fish farming has an effect on the surrounding environment. I'd be crazy to think anything else, but to the extent that is being portrayed in the media that it's just completely false and that it's the consensus of just about all of the local Strawn community that the fish farms and their workers are being put out to be villains and cowboys and environmental pests, just out to wreck everything. But this is so far from reality. And if people really got to understand what we do and the effort that workers put into everything we do to the highest possible standard, not only to help our fish, but the native animals and the coastlines, maybe they'd appreciate us more. Things like the use of seal crackers and other deterrents that have potential to hurt or affect animals. I'm super proud of saying that on my farm in the Huon Western region, we've not used a single cracker, beanbag or trap on any animal, and that's the way it will stay, no exceptions. There are so many factors that could be contributing to the decline of the skate, although I'm not convinced. Have they declined to the extent that it's been stated? Last year, being La Nina, was so much different. There was very little flow from the dams. Then they allow huge amounts of salt water to enter the harbour. And this is clear to see what we have had some very good recharge events. Hydro are able to change the entire environment so easy, and it's so clear to see when they do a release, whether they do it through the Gordon, nice dark water that has a cooling effect, or through John Butters. This flows down through the King River and it's almost glowing in the dark from the amount of contaminants in it. We know the second they do this is the fish don't like it and it puts them off their feed. Now, the big elephant in the room that involves the Merrimictic Lakes, 3 of which are nestled next to the Gordon River and in the World Heritage Area, I asked, what's the health of these? I can tell you they're dead. Thanks to the flow rates Hydro have exposed the river to for so many years. These are much smaller but very similar to Mac Harbour, as they need to be recharged by salt water, and this has not been able to happen due to the amount of fresh water coming down and restricting salt water from going up into the river. I asked how many species have been lost here. Well, who knows? I can say that the demise of these lakes had nothing to do with the fish farms. I hope we can save the skate, and a breeding program is a step towards understanding them. However, this should be done in Strawn and not taken away from the town and put in a big city. It's our skate for me and my kids and their kids, for them to be able to see for the years to come. My biggest concern is for my family and my workers and their families, and if the decision to reduce stocks or take them out of the harbour, how would that affect me? I'd no longer have a job. I don't know what else I could do. I have farmed fish all my life. My son, who is 18, also works for me. He's just become a fully qualified diver and absolutely loves his job. What do I tell him? I've people working for me that are the sole income provider with families of 5 kids. What do I tell them? Sorry, mate, you need to starve this week. I have another guy who's worked on this site for 32 years. What do I tell him? Sorry, mate, you wasted your life with us. What do I tell the multiple families who have settled and live on the West Coast and need this job to keep food on the table? Sorry, guys, you're going to have to leave your family and friends. These are the conversations I'll need to have with my staff and their wives, and sadly their kids, if you go ahead and make a call to basically shut us down. Nobody wants to see anything go extinct. That's why we do the work together, and we need to find a solution together. Yes, the skate is a huge issue, but please also take into account the mental health of my staff and their family. Yep, Strawn is the Wild West, and it's full of manly men that pride themselves on being the provider. And I will say, talking to the people here, it's like go back in time. You can imagine the effects not being able to support your family, the effects that will have on them. People will lose their homes. Airbnbs have taken over the market here, so renting is just not on the table. Suicide rates will most definitely rise. Drugs are almost unseen, at least here in Strawn. No jobs will turn into creating a drug issue. I've seen this firsthand in southern Tasmania. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and I hope this helps your decision. Sorry if I jumped around a bit, but this is very important to me, and I'm passionate about it, and I worry about it every day. From Linton.
Honourable Member for Franklin.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker. Rise just following from Ms Finlay's contribution on salmon and some of the real stress that's been placed on the workforce on the West Coast, and also following our trip quite quickly organised by Ms Finlay to Macquarie Harbour during the parliamentary break, where I thought I was leaving Hobart to go to Smithton, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it was diverted to Macquarie Harbour as organised by the precocious and very big supporter of the salmon industry, Ms Finlay, and was able to spend the day with Steve Thompson, who's a worker and a manager at Tassal, who took us out on the boat at Macquarie Harbour. I'm originally from the West Coast, Mr Deputy Speaker, but I left when I was very young, and it was actually the first time out on the water at Macquarie Harbour, and I didn't realise the sheer size of it and the spectacular scenery. It was one of the most beautiful places in Tasmania, and I think one of the reasons why the locals there are so passionate about the industry is because they get to work in it every day. Every day they get to jump out of bed, jump on the boat and head out into one of the most beautiful places in Tasmania and Australia and possibly the world, which is Macquarie Harbour. And Ms Finlay wasn't able to complete the entire contribution from Lyndon, who's a worker at HAC, but I wanted to read one of the other contributions and emails that I've received. This one's from Andrew. Andrew is a West Coaster as well, and he said, "Hi, my name's Andrew and I currently work for Huon Aquaculture and reside locally here in Strawn. I wish to express my concern about the proposed measures for our local industry and what it will mean not only for myself and my family, but also my fellow work colleagues and the community overall. I'm approaching 10 years employment at Huon Aquaculture, which has been exclusively spent here in Strawn, and as you can all surely appreciate, I've witnessed and experienced many changes within the industry and in particular this harbour. All of the events have taken place within this industry during my time here in Strawn. This is by far the scariest and threatening to my own personal livelihood, along with everyone that is employed here in this magnificent coastal town. Not only will I be immediately impacted by the proposed measures, but also my extended family, who operate small businesses within the town, will feel the flow-on effects due to the fact this will almost certainly spell the end of the potential future income that is relied upon during the off-season periods. Just a little backstory, I'm originally from the West Coast, but I spent the majority of my life around the Devon Port Sorell region. After driving in and driving out of Strawn for the best part of 6 years, I decided to move back to my original hometown, and over the last 4 years I've had 2 children, one of which is about to start school, purchased my first home and established many lifetime friends within this remarkable and unique community. In a nutshell, I've managed to establish really strong roots and a secure future for my family, all because of the opportunities that the industry has provided me. The recent news doing the rounds has already showed evidence of unease within our workplace as well as general public, and I plead with all those who have the power to seriously consider the livelihoods of all members of our community, because of this industry provides the backbone of this town, and I fear the compromising of aquaculture here in Strawn will fracture the community to an unprecedented degree. I truly hope that all solutions to this current predicament are being explored to the fullest potential, and I trust that a high degree of consideration is being made to the families that exist here in the town because of aquaculture. I look forward to the future developments and findings on this topic. Yours sincerely, Andrew. Mr Deputy Speaker, that's why we support the salmon industry, because of people like Andrew. We support the aquaculture industry because of the opportunities that it's provided to so many Tasmanians, because of the lifestyle, because of the way of life, and because of the way that it has held up the West Coast. Towns like Strawn and Queenstown, which are now being supported so heavily, not only through the traditional mining sector, which of course has a really positive impact, but also the aquaculture industry. I think the impacts economically cannot be doubted, and when I hear comments from, particularly from the Greens, who ask questions basically saying we should immediately shut down Macquarie Harbour, I'm devastated for the community that they have to be exposed to comments like that from people who claim to hold the moral high ground, who don't seem to care about people. I'm devastated for them when I hear that. We were really lucky to have that tour. We were really lucky to spend time in the workplace that those Tasmanians get to spend time on every single day. And I want to acknowledge Tassal for allowing us to do it, Huon Aquaculture for being so open about the science and what they do, and also Petuna, who've taken Ms Finlay and I out on a boat only recently to see some of their plans for the future. I want to say that Luke Martin and his influence on Salmon Tasmania has been profoundly positive so far. Salmon Tasmania is operating extremely well, and they are lobbying and doing a great job of making sure that industry gets the best outcome possible. We need to make sure that the Tasmanian government is strongly on the side of the salmon industry. We don't need a government that's going to place moratoriums on the industry. We don't need a government that's going to use the salmon industry as a test case for full cost recovery. But unfortunately, that's what we've got. We've got a minister who says she doesn't want to let the industry off the hook. We need to make sure that this parliament and this government is fully behind the industry as it is exposed to major challenges and major risks. We need to make sure that that industry and their workers, in particular their workers, know that we are behind them. Labor's behind them. We need the Liberals to be behind them. We need the whole parliament to be behind those workers to make sure they know that their jobs are safe. I also want to acknowledge the Australian Workers Union, who I know has been working with those workers, with Salmon Tasmania, with the companies to make sure that Canberra understands exactly what's going on here and what it means to the West Coast of Tasmania. I think this is an important matter that the Parliament needs to take note of. We need to be strong. We need to stand up for Tasmania. We need to stand up for jobs.
Yeah.